Extreme solo self-funding. So one of the greatest parts, just by osmosis, of living this high pressure, high stress lifestyle of not knowing what's coming next, is that invariably you run into figures and you run into people in your life just through your daily routine that will come into your life and help you in ways that is beyond your wildest imagination. So one summer I was selling watches, high-end timepieces for a jeweler. Guy was completely loaded, he's famous. Was renting 2 cars from him, a Rolls-Royce Dawn and an S63 AMG Benz. $10,000 a month in lease payments. With no job, no income, no stability. I checked myself into a 5-star hotel to sling the watches, because most people, when they're in a pinch and they're in a crunch, what they do is they go low-end everything to try to skimp their way out of it. I had the opposite approach. I had this zeal for life. I believed in myself, and I thought, you know what, if I'm broke, the best thing I could do is get a 1-week head start. I took everything in my pocket, prepaid a week at a 5-star hotel, checked in. Once I checked in, it occurred to me, all the customers that I needed to sell my watches to were above me, to the left of me, to the right of me, below me. Every wall that I was encased in was a potential buyer. So all I would do is spend time on the pool every day, smoking cigarettes. I'd go lift in the morning, I'd go follow my routine, and I would sit there and just commune with all of the clientele at the hotel. I'd go to the vault, I'd let them try on the pieces. I was selling them like hotcakes. Got myself in an environment where I was thriving. I was paying off the cars, no problem. I would take people out to lunch in the cars. The image is a huge factor, right? But they're just tools. At the end of the day, I was extremely detached from the results or the outcome of having the cars. Because again, the central focus was me and what I'm capable of. And if I lose my tools, I've got me to bail myself out. So what happened was, I ended up convincing the jeweler. I had a huge business proposition with another guy. He gave me $500,000 in cash in 1 day of negotiation because I had built such a rapport with him of selling the pieces. Didn't even think twice. I got myself into a bind where the deal did not pan out the way I wanted it to in a certain amount of time. So these guys had GPS trackers on the cars that I was renting from them. So one of the days, when I was stalling and I was trying to cobble together a plan to replace the money and make some profit, I was trying to close this other deal. I get pulled over on a side street. 4 guys get out of the car, come up to my window, tell me to get out of the car. I knew it was them, and I'm not a guy who runs from confrontation ever, especially if I'm in the wrong, especially if I owe money. I will show up face to face at 1 o'clock in the morning if you want to face my demons, because I want to make it right. So I get out of the car and they pull me aside and literally grab me by my shirt. Guy puts a gun in my face and says, "Where's my fucking 500,000?" Now, when I took the 500, I actually told him I was going to pay him back 625, and I was going to have plenty of profit left over to make another deal. So very cool, calm, and collected. Literally staring a gun barrel down my fucking face. They strip search me, make sure I don't have any money on me, strip search the car. They confiscate the cars, and eventually they let me go after I explained to him, look, you can't do this right now. You got to give me some time to figure this out. And the whole time, I'll never forget, the guy's looking at me between the eyes, and he's like, I don't know why I like you, but I do. And he said that like 5 times. He's like, I have no clue why I like you, but I like you. And I think it's because I didn't want to run. I got out of the car and confronted him like a man and said, here's the deal. Here's what's going to happen. So I told him to give me 4 days to come up with $625,000. I had 0 at the time because it was all invested in another project that had not panned out yet. Here's where it gets interesting. Here's where solo self-funding completely saves my ass. I walk into my steakhouse. Not a clue how I'm gonna pull this off. They just took my cars. I had nothing on me. All I had was my wallet. I Ubered to my steakhouse that night for dinner. and I bump into a guy, a regular, who I had seen there almost every night. Not as often as me, but very similar pattern of going to the restaurant. Sit down with him for dinner. He's like, what's up? Start chatting. I tell him what I'm going through. Told him what had happened earlier in the day. Same day, same evening. I'd never talked business with this guy. All he knew was that I was a gentleman who comes in there every single night of the week, always have a pretty lady draped over me, and I'm getting 4-star service from every single person in the restaurant. GM's always checking on me. That's all he knows at this point. Told him the story. Tells me to meet him at his office the next morning to have a discussion about the cash. I begged him for it. I said, look, you got to get me out of this jam. I'm going to put together something. I got another project panning out. I'll take care of it. Guy I meet his office next morning. Dude writes me a check for $625,000. No hesitation. No hesitation whatsoever. Just based on pure blind faith, based on the image of representation that I had at the restaurant. And my Rolls Royce valeted out there every day. Thought I was good for it. The point of the story is that when you get yourself in these horrific spots sometimes, while you're venturing, while you're making wild plays, you have to understand that you always have your home turf to fall back on. That's the purpose of the routine, is that there's always someone, there's always a way, someone you can work with in order to get out of the situation. So he gives me the $625. I pay the guy back. They won't give me the cars back though, so I'm carless. I then go back to the guy, and here's the moral of the story. When you borrow $5,000, $10,000 from someone, they own you. But when you borrow a massive amount of money from someone, you own them. And like I've always talked about with leadership and stewardship and believing in yourself, I asked this guy for another $200K. It took some wrestling back and forth, but he could tell that my energy was genuine, my energy was pure, that I had a plan. I didn't really have a plan. My intention was to go to Vegas, launch on some games, and hopefully get lucky while I was waiting for this other deal to pan out, which when that deal panned out, I could wipe out the board anyway and still walk away with a little bit of crispy profit. But again, I'm setting deadlines way before they're due. I'm bringing the action to the forefront. So I take the $200K, he gives it to me in cash. I go to Vegas. I go on the luckiest tear, a once in a 15-year, this will never happen again. I go on a wild streak playing craps. Hot hand at a dice game. I make $1.2 million in 2 hours. I cash out. I fly home. I take care of him, pay him back $1 million. I keep 200 grand for myself, and I wait for my other project to pull back out. I get my cars back. I put a $100,000 deposit, prepay them for a year. Now I'm back in business again. Got the cars. I'm rolling. I'm back at the pool. I'm back in the hotel. I got money in my pocket. I'm waiting for a huge project to bust open over here. The point of the story is that with this ruthless self-belief and this vicious routine, this portrait of performance, that's where people that have money want to invest in you. They want to put their money in young gunslingers who are ambitious, and they're also looking for a thrill. A lot of these guys are retired, they already have money, but they want to live vicariously through a young hotshot who's just coming up in the world and has wild ideas. And so I have walked into situations like this so many times in my life. I really can't say I've taken any L's, because whenever I've been destitute, whenever I've gone bankrupt with my wild ideas, taking shots, firing rockets into the abyss, I always happen to bump into some dude who I can do business with, who will help me out. And in the end, I just keep firing and keep, like a machine gun artist, just spraying things down until I find something that works. In this case, I got very lucky in a short amount of time, and everything panned out perfectly. I've had numerous occasions where it hasn't worked out that way. And then you have to go into relationship management. You have to manage other people's expectations. But the point is that people are always afraid to ask for more than they deserve. And so doors don't open for them. And I am always asking for much more than I deserve, and I'm also asking for much more than I think I'm capable of, so that I'm forced to transform into a different human being in order to make it happen. Because I keep my word at the end of the day. That is all that I have, especially when you're going in huge deals with people. So foundationally, it's extremely important that you have that routine set at very high-end places so that you're always in an ambiance of wealthy people. And then the stories just write themselves.